You know that feeling when it seems like absolutely nothing is working? Like every door you try to walk through closes. Every plan you have had has fallen apart. Every area of your life feels heavier than it should. You're trying to get in shape, but your motivation is gone. You're trying to get ahead in your career, but you still feel behind. You're trying to trust God, but He feels silent. You're trying to build a better life, but it feels like life itself is fighting you. And eventually, it starts to feel like everything is closing in on you. Like you're trapped. Like no matter what you do, you just can't get any momentum. Nothing is happening on your timeline. Nothing is going according to plan. Nothing seems to be working. And the scary part is that after a while, you stop asking when things will get better, and you start asking if they ever will. You start wondering if maybe this is just your life now. Maybe you missed your chance. Maybe everybody else got something that you didn't. Maybe this is all there is. But what if you're looking at this season completely wrong? Because when you study the lives of great men, there seems to be a strange pattern. Before they became who they were meant to become, their lives got harder, significantly harder. Before they were elevated, they were broken. Before they built something great, something in them first had to die. And maybe that's why the season feels so painful. Because maybe your life isn't falling apart. Maybe you're in the part of the story where you're being remade. Let's talk about it. I think one of the hardest things about suffering isn't the suffering itself, it's not knowing what it's for. Because pain with meaning is bearable, but pain without meaning can crush a man. I think every man eventually goes through a season that he never saw coming. A season where nothing works. The prayers don't seem to get answered. The opportunities don't come. The relationship doesn't happen. The motivation disappears. The things that used to excite you don't excite you anymore. You feel stuck, tired, defeated. And no matter how hard you try, it feels like life just keeps pushing back. It's the season nobody wants. The season where it feels like everybody else's life is moving forward while yours has come to a complete standstill. And if you're honest, there are moments when it feels like you're losing. Like maybe life is happening for everyone else, but not for you. I had a Thursday evening, sometime in Feb or March, when I was working overtime. I was working on two clients at my job. And there was this moment when we were just leaving the office. It was about 11 p.m. My friend and I we were on the audit. We're going down the stairs and, we say bye to each other. And I go in my car and I'm just driving back home and I'm just thinking, man, like, is this life? It was one of those nights that just makes you question everything. And don't get me wrong, like I think in this journey that I've been on doing articles, I'm in my third year now. I've been questioning a lot, like every single day. But that specific night just killed me. And I was just thinking, I was like, man, like nothing is going the way I thought it would be. I thought back to myself 5, 10 years ago. I was like, I couldn't have dreamed this up. Like I couldn't have thought I'd be here I was 23 at that time. I couldn't have dreamed this up. I couldn't have dreamed that this is the life I'm living at 23. And it was just one of those nights where everything just kind of crushes in on you because we had a really long night working a lot of overtime. We still had a lot of overtime to go post that night, but that specific night, I remember we were pushing to try and get one of the entities we were auditing signed that Friday, and man, like it just took everything out of me. And I was just looking at life, and I'm like, nothing is going to plan. Like it's not even just oh work sucks and we're working really hard. It didn't feel like oh I'm just in a season where it sucks. It really felt like work sucks in every way possible. I'm working really hard. um I'm not getting recognized, I guess, and like it's not going as well as I would have wanted it to go. Out of shape, I've been eating like crap. I don't get good sleep. I'm still single and I hate that. I'm not getting to chat with my friends a lot. My relationship with God is just it's just really stuck right now. Like I'm in a really deep, dark place. And nights like that do that to you. And I'm sure you might have had a moment where you've kind of sat down and you've thought, you're like, man, nothing is working. Like I had all these dreams for myself, and there comes a moment when the rubber kind of feels like it's meeting the road, where you're looking and you're like, I've always imagined that life would be a lot better than it is now. I've always imagined, like, yeah, 5 years ago, if you told me what's on your mind, you'd be like, oh yeah, no, life isn't great now, but in a year it'll be a little bit better, in 2 years it'll be a little bit better, in 3 years it'll be a lot better. Um, and fast forward 5 years and it's not getting better. It seems to be getting worse actually. And the worst part is that I'm trying a lot of things and nothing seems to be working. And I think that's particularly defeating when it's not like you've taken the first punch. If we're going to use an analogy of being in a boxing ring, it's not like you've just taken the first punch to the face and you're like, okay, it's getting real now, let me get up and actually try something. This is like freaking, I don't know how many rounds there usually are in boxing. I don't watch boxing, but imagine you're in the freaking eighth round or whatever, and you've been taking punches and punches and punches, and you've been trying all these different things, and you still keep getting punched, and you take a hard one and you fall to the ground, and you're like, man, I don't know if I can get up now, because the air kind of gets sucked out of your lungs, not just from being punched all the time, but just like everything you're trying is not working. And if you find yourself in a space that I've found myself where you're like, it's not just this, it's not just, oh, I've taken a punch from this area of life. It's like life in general is just not working out. And all these hopes and dreams I have for myself are not working out. And there's a lot of things that come into it. It's like, oh, okay, like in my situation, work isn't great. But there's also things I'm like, I got to look at myself and I'm like, my sleep schedule isn't great. Now, work makes it difficult when you're working overtime and you leave in the office at 11. But past that, I've had lots of weekends and weeks where I can just go to sleep at a proper time, wake up at the same time, get a workout in, eat properly. But I just haven't been doing that. And it's just like everywhere you look in your life, nothing's working. It's terrible. And I think the thing that makes it worse as well is you look around and you're like, everyone else, they may not have it going great for them, but something seems to be working for them. And I'll take you back to where I've been work wise. Like that night when I left the office with my friend, I remember. I mean, he's married, and I remember asking him. It was before he left. I was like, when you work a night like this, does getting to go home to your wife make everything feel better? And he was like, oh, dude, absolutely it does. And for me, I'm just like, oh, I don't have that. Yeah, we're suffering together. Like everyone, all the other 30 years and stuff, where I work, we all struggle. Like work is tough. But I'm like, I can look at every single person I've spoken to, all my friends and stuff. Yeah, they're struggling, but they've got other things going for them in life, married, or, maybe work isn't so bad, or they're getting like kind of rewards for their labor, whatever the case is. Like, if you were to look at their lives in different blocks, there's some blocks where it seems to be going really well for them, and then others, obviously, including work, where it's not great. But I'm like, for me, everything is horrible, and that makes things very difficult. I would say if you find yourself in that situation, the dangerous thing about seasons like this is that they start changing the way you see yourself. You stop saying, I'm going through a hard season, and you start saying, maybe I'm just a failure. You stop saying, this isn't working right now, and you start saying, maybe nothing will ever work. You start making permanent conclusions from temporary seasons. But what if the reason everything feels like it's falling apart is because the old version of you can't go where you're trying to go? What if some things need to die? Some expectations, habits, idols, dreams, some versions of yourself? Because sometimes life doesn't just change your circumstances, it changes you. And that's a much more painful process. Because when you look at almost every great man, there's a pattern hiding in plain sight. Look at every man you admire. Look at every hero, every person you wish you could become, and then go back and study their story. I almost guarantee you'll find the same thing. The season that made them was usually that season that nearly broke them. We celebrate the success, we celebrate the achievements, we celebrate the finished product, but we rarely pay attention to what it cost. Because every great man seems to go through the same process. He gets broken first. I want you to picture a lot of your heroes. I mean, I can just start. I'm going to go through a couple of great guys that we look at and we're like, wow, these people really did well for themselves in life. I can just start with Bible characters. I mean, Joseph. I look at Joseph's story and I'm like, yeah, he went through some suffering, but then in the end, he was like second most powerful in Egypt, and God used him wonderfully. But picture Joseph in that prison. Picture him after what happened with Potiphar's wife, where life is like he's been sold to slavery and, he's in prison, wrongfully imprisoned. And he's being faithful and he's getting recognized for his achievements. He's climbing up in the ranks. And then his boss's wife looks at him and he's like, oh, he's handsome, and he tries to come onto him, and then he's like, no, how can I do that to my boss? I can't do that, and he runs away, and then his the boss's wife accuses him of assault, and then he gets shoved back in prison. Picture him in that moment, like that's a rock bottom moment. Why am I even here? Why am I in this country? My brothers try to kill me. They sold me off to slavery. I've been doing my utmost here in prison. And then I get tempted and I do the right thing. And then I pay the price for it. I've got to look at that moment and just imagine Joseph being like, God has abandoned me. Think about all the brokenness he had to go through before he gets to everything else that's going to happen. David, I mean, dude, we've got like 150 Psalms. I mean, they're not all his. I think half of those are like his. We've got so many Psalms of him crying out to God because he's just freaking broken, like, how long, oh Lord? There's a Psalm where he says that the tears have gotten up to my eyes. Um, yeah, no, the tears. Uh, the water has gone up to my neck, and my eyes are weary from crying. I don't think about that. I think of David, I guess he's not the Lion of Judah, but the line on which Jesus is come from. Like he's the one with the throne that will never subside, right? I think of that, but I don't think about those moments when you're suffering, right? When he's absolutely broken. Moses, I mean, dude, when he took the Israelites out of Egypt, he was like 80, and he went through a lot before he even got there. There's so many people that go through difficult rock bottom moments that prepare them for who they're going to become. Cristiano Ronaldo, I mean, again, like superheroes, everything. Like think of every story you have of people that you look up to, or people that you're like, man, this person has done something incredible. They have seasons where things are rough, like they're really, really rough, and they either have to choose whether they're gonna stick or twist, right? And it takes me to this thing I love. I'm just calling it the art of reinventing yourself, and I want to speak on Cristiano Ronaldo specifically because I've watched a lot of like stuff of his, like his I don't want to say documentaries, but just stories. I love that kind of thing. Just watching like people, elite sportsmen. Just seeing what they've gone through and them picking themselves up out of the muck and the mire. It's very inspiring for me. And Ronaldo, just think about specifically, there was a time when he got a knee injury, and you've got to think, man. Again, put yourself in that position. He's 29. He's built his career on being a fast, flashy winger. His speed, skills, dribbling, knuckleball free kicks, all this stuff, right? And Messi's won like 4 Ballon d'Ors in a row because he's the goat. But think about that. If you're looking at a career like that, you're like, this guy's career is over. Like, think at that point, 30 used to be the age people would be like, oh man, career is over. Once you hit 30, you're done. And this guy has got this what feels like a career-ending injury. Like when he comes back, he's not going to be the same, and he wasn't. He wasn't anywhere near as fast as he was when he came back from that injury. And he reinvented himself, and he became this change from, okay, I can't be a flashy winger. Let me go switch to being like a goal scorer who gets all these like crazy headers and volleys and scores tap-ins, and like I just score a crap ton of goals. And he reinvents himself to the point where he scored more goals after 30 than he did before 30. And that's crazy. We look at it as like, it's good, it's cool, but it's not like out of the ordinary. But put yourself at that point. This is like early 2010s. And a knee injury at that age, like at 29, you're done. Your career is done. Like, pack it up there. You've got your 1 Ballon d'Or. You've got, your almost 400 goals. You've done decent for yourself. Start slowing down, go and retire. And he's like, no, I'm going to reinvent myself. I'm going to score more goals post 30 than I did before 30. I'm going to go win freaking 4 more Champions Leagues and 4 more Ballon d'Ors. That's insane. And I find that very, very encouraging. To see somebody who's able to reinvent himself like that. And I think it's something we need to take inspiration from. I think if you find yourself in a season like that, it's like, cool. You're in that moment where it's making you who you're going to be. And personally, as somebody who watches sports, like going back to the Cristiano Ronaldo story, I mean, as I said, like I definitely think Messi's the GOAT by far, but I really admire Ronaldo. I love what he's done in his career. Getting a bit annoying with all these petty comments and stuff he's made, but just looking at his career, he's great. He had to reinvent himself, and you find yourself in a position like that where you're in the darkest place of in your life, you also have to reinvent yourself. And with the Ronaldo story, I appreciate I prefer Ronaldo post 30 than before 30. Like, yeah, it was cool when Ronaldo was doing all the skills and stuff, but I love just watching frick, this guy jump like 2 meters in the air and score this header. I love him scoring this volley. I love watching, 2016, 2017, 2018, when he's scoring like a brace every game in the knockouts. I love 20, I think it's 2016, 2017, that season. He's got freaking Bayern Munich. He's got there was Atletico Madrid. He's got Juventus. I know in 2018 he had PSG, Bayern Munich again, Juventus again. Like, he's got all these top teams, and he's one leg is scoring 2 goals, the next leg is scoring a hat trick. And then the next, quarterfinals, he's scoring a hat trick against Atletico Madrid, and then he's scoring again. I'm like, that's incredible. Like, and we wouldn't have that version of him if he didn't go through what he went through. And you've got to think about that for yourself. It's very difficult when you are in the story to be like, man, the person I can become when I get out of this is going to be so different, but so much better than who I was before this. But you've got to take that view of like the art of reinventing yourself. I love that thing. You've got to learn about the art of reinventing yourself. It's incredible. And I spoke in my last video about finding your bottleneck. And I think those two go hand in hand. If you want to reinvent yourself, you've got to find what that bottleneck is and how you keep, evolving into who you need to become. And I think that's something I pointed out in these stories, is that we tend to look at like the we tend to look at the tall tree, the tree that's grown so tall, and we're like, wow, look at that thing. But we don't look at the roots that it had to grow in order to be able to sustain being that tall. We don't look at that. And you're in the season where you're building the roots. You can't grow into the person you're trying to become without building the foundation that you need. And this is just the season you are in. And I think one of the greatest skills a man can develop is the ability to let old versions of himself die, to reinvent himself, to adapt, and to become someone new. Because life changes, circumstances change, you change. And sometimes the thing that breaks you is introducing you to someone better, a wiser man, a stronger man, a man with deeper faith, more resilience, greater compassion. The breaking isn't pointless. The breaking creates capacity. The storm forces your roots to grow deeper. And one day you'll realize that the things you never would have chosen for yourself gave you something you couldn't have gotten any other way. But here's where it gets personal, because every man eventually reaches a crossroads, a moment where he has to decide, do I stay here or do I become someone new? I genuinely think this might be the most important season of your life, because seasons like this become turning points. This is the part of the story where men either reinvent themselves or quietly give up. They either become bitter or they become better. They either let suffering destroy them or they let it transform them. This is the stick or twist moment. This is your stick or twist moment. And what you do here matters, because 5 years from now, you either look back and realize this was the season that changed everything, or the season where you slowly started giving up on yourself. This season matters, man. It really does. Because if you find yourself in the position I've kind of described, where you're just a drop bottom, life circumstances are forcing you to make a decision. And I like that part, at the end of the monologue I was just reading, it's like, because 5 years from now, you either look back and realize that this was the season that changed everything, or the season where you slowly started giving up on yourself. And that's it. It is a dichotomy. You can either completely transform yourself or you can give up on yourself. But life has given you no choice. You are at a crossroads. You can either turn right or turn left. There is no carry on going straight. And I think if you're somebody who's watching this kind of video, you know what you want to be. You know what you want to choose. So you might as well choose it. And I think the other thing that's important for us to realize is that you have more in you than you think. And I feel it myself, man. I look back and I'm just like, the entirety of these 3 years that I've been doing articles, I think I've just felt completely overwhelmed the whole time, but I'm still here. I have had more in the tank than I thought I was. I've gotten further than I thought I would. I've taken more than I thought I could. And so have you. It's that old adage, like you survived every single bad day of your life. But it's true. You've gotten this far. You have more in you than you think you have. The fact that you're here, still thinking about how can I improve, etc., etc., how can I get out of this, means that there's still something there and there's something worth fighting for. And that's just really what I wanted to kind of point out in this, is that it's not a unique thing that, like, you can insert your name, that you specifically, life has just decided it's going to beat down on you and this is where it ends for you. This is something that a lot of great men have in common. You can't become great without going through that. And it's going to come at some point. It can come, for some people, it comes very early on. Other people, it comes a bit later when things have gone well, but then they break down and then you need to rebuild again. Whatever the case, we can't decide, when God is deciding to put us through, the seasons that we're going to go through. But it's here and you're not alone in it. Not just that typical you're not alone, but genuinely, like, you're not the only one who goes through it. It's something that it's a privilege, actually, because it's a rite of passage. I think that's the way to look at it. A rite of passage. To become the kind of guy you want to be, you need to go through this. This is an opportunity, actually, because if you didn't have this, your seeding just wasn't going to be that high. But you've got to go down to build the root so you can grow as far and as high as you can. I know you feel tired. I know you feel defeated. I know it feels like you've got nothing left. But the fact that you're still here, still trying, still searching, still watching this video, that means something. There's still fight in you. There's still hope in you. There's still something inside of you that believes life can be different. Do not ignore that. Because some men quit right before the season changes. Some men stop digging while they're standing above gold. This season is asking something of you. Not perfection, not certainty, just perseverance. So what do you actually do if this is where you are right now? What do you do when it feels like your entire life has been one long rebuilding season? Because in every superhero movie, this part lasts about 2 minutes. The hero gets knocked down, he trains, he rebuilds himself. Cue the music, and then he's back. But your montage has been going on for 4 years, maybe 5, maybe longer. And that's the difficult part. Nobody talks about how exhausting it is to rebuild yourself for years. Nobody talks about how tiring it is to keep believing things can change when you spend so long feeling stuck. Nobody talks about how hard it is to keep showing up when it feels like you've been in the wilderness forever. Because eventually you start asking, how much longer? When do I get my turn? When does all this finally start making sense? And maybe that's exactly where you are right now. You've been rebuilding yourself for so long that you're starting to wonder if this is all there is. But I think there are a few things you need to remember. I think the first action step is really just keep doing the things you know you should be doing. So if I'm going to take us back to that Thursday evening when I'm driving home and I'm like, man, like everything sucks. I start to wake up the next Friday morning and go to work. And that's all you can do. Right? You find yourself in a position where you feel like you're at rock bottom. You know the fundamentals you should be doing. You've watched all the videos. You know the things you should be doing. You know that right now, even though you can't see what's happening in front, you know what you need to do for the next step, the next day. You know the next step you need to take. Get that sleep schedule locked in. Get that diet locked in. Get that workout routine locked in. Get that work locked in. You're trying to build that thing. Carry on. You want to build a YouTube channel. Go film that video. You want to build a product. Go freaking, I don't know what people do when they're building products, but go do that thing. You know what you need to do. So just carry on going through the motions if that's all you can muster right now, but you've got to keep going because you're at that point where it's stick or twist. You either give up or you transcend, this difficult season you find yourself in. So that's the first step, because when you're finding yourself in a position where life just feels like it's closing in on you, well, it becomes very difficult to focus right in front of you because, what's the point? Everything feels like it's failing. I'm looking at the bigger picture. But that's when you've got to just keep going step by step by step by step, and then the road gets clearer. It's not going to be clear now. But the only way you can find out how the story ends is if you keep going, keep pushing through. Then the other thing I suggested was try something different. Try something, when you watch those videos, and I'm thinking of the Batman Dark Knight trilogy, when Bruce Wayne decides to go to freaking, I think it was China, but he goes to go be with the monks in the mountain and to just rebuild himself. It's that kind of thing where you just change your environment, try something, go on some retreat or sabbatical, go do something different. just to kind of take you out of where you're at now. That's something I think I probably need to do something similar actually. um, but yeah, I'd suggest doing that as well. And then the third part is just kind of what I spoke about just now is this is a privilege. It's a rite of passage that you're in this. And I know it doesn't feel like it, but it only feels like it sucks when you do what I was doing, when I'm looking around, I'm like, man, this guy's married, this person's got this thing going, or they just got engaged. He's got all this money saved up, whatever the case is. It becomes very difficult because now I'm looking around and I'm like, man, everyone else is just kind of here, and I'm like here, like nothing's just working for me at all. But you've got to extend your timeline, right? Just take a look at the bigger picture and be like, all the people that do become great, and I'm not saying, you're gonna go become freaking, I don't know, like Napoleon or Shakespeare or whatever. But every person you admire, every person you look at and you're like, man, this person inspires me, whatever the case is. I know for me, like I've in this difficult season, like I've found a lot of solace in music. As I said, like watching athletes, seeing how they got out of tough times, whatever. Every person that you're looking at for motivation went through that. There was a point where they were behind everyone. It looked like they were behind everyone. And things were tough. And they had to go through a similar season as you, and they got out. And that inspires you. And you can become that person for somebody else. And I think that's important for you to look at it as like, this isn't something that's happening to me that I don't want to happen to me. It's, oh, this is an opportunity. It's a rite of passage to become the man I want to become. You don't need to have your entire life figured out. You just need to keep taking the next step. Keep showing up. Keep trusting. Keep becoming. Because one day you'll look back and realize that the season you hated gave you everything. The discipline, the wisdom, the perspective, faith, strength, the man you became. In the end, you realize that great men aren't the men who avoided suffering. They're the men who allowed suffering to change them. You realize that the seasons you spent trying to escape were often the seasons that were shaping you. The loneliness, the uncertainty, the waiting, the disappointment, the prayers that seemed to go unanswered, the doors that closed, the years that didn't go according to plan. One day you'll look back on all of it and realize that it wasn't meaningless, because the season that almost broke you almost built you. The season that humbled you, deepened you, that season that made you question everything, forced you to become someone new. And maybe that's why the season feels so painful, because something in you is dying, an old identity, an old expectation, an old version of yourself. And the truth is, some versions of you cannot go where you're being called to go. They have to be left behind. So if it feels like your life is falling apart right now, if it feels like everything is closing on you, if it feels like nothing is working, don't be too quick to assume that your story is going wrong. You might simply be in the chapter where great men are made. Because every great story has a breaking point. And maybe, just maybe, this is yours.